at what they predict for the energy output. Okay, so I just want to look at comparing the amount of energy that could come out of a wind turbine, a couple different kinds of wind turbines, and solar panels to a house. So this is for a small house near Mount Vernon. It's not my house, but it's a pretty typical kind of curve for the amount of electricity that a home would use, although it's on the lower side of the kilowatt hours per month. So January through May, the heating is done with natural gas or propane, and so this is the base electricity load. And then as we get into the summer, the air conditioner is running, and the electricity needs more than double to run that air conditioner, and then they go back down again. And this is one reason that the power companies really love geothermal heat pumps, because it evens this out. It increases the electricity load in the wintertime, running the geothermal heat pump to provide heat, but it decreases the electricity load in the summertime to provide electricity, because it's a more efficient cooling technique. But for most homes and for the grid in general, we see this kind of curve. So I don't want you to take these numbers totally seriously for a number of reasons. So these numbers along here are from the Iowa Energy Center prediction. It's for Mount Vernon, which is not the same as your location. You might find different prices for how much it costs to install a 1 kilowatt wind turbine. So this is a very general analysis. But if we compare 1 kilowatt wind turbine to a home, so the blue is the home energy use, the green is the amount of electricity that the 1 kilowatt wind turbine would be able to produce. And so we can see that it's significant, but certainly doesn't provide all of the electricity for the home, and that as the electricity use goes up in the summer, the wind energy goes down at the same time. So you might be interested in whether this is cost effective. For a grid intertype system, it depends on your net metering agreement with your utility company. And I already talked about how the net metering works. So if you imagine that you settle at the end of a year, so you exchange electricity back and forth with your power company depending on when you need it and when you're producing it, and at the end of a year with the 1 kilowatt wind generator, you've produced 1,700 kilowatt hours. If you pay 10 cents a kilowatt hour, how many people pay more than 10 cents a kilowatt hour for their electricity? Anybody know? How many people pay less than 10 cents a kilowatt hour for their electricity? Okay, so good ballpark. 10 cents a kilowatt hour. This nets $170 in savings in a year if the electricity company has allowed you to slash it back and forth at the same price. And if your system costs $5,000 to have somebody come and install it for you, it'll take 29 years to pay back. Without thinking about how much it might cost to borrow money or taking into account repairs. So the question at the beginning is, if you want to do this to save money, you have to decide whether that's saving money for you. I think there are lots of good reasons to put in renewable energy, and we might decide that 10 cents a kilowatt hour is not enough to spend on electricity. Maybe it should cost more, and then this would be more cost effective. If we wanted to produce all the electricity that this house uses, we might bump up to a 10 kilowatt wind turbine. There are some wind turbines with sizes in between, but they're not as flexible in adjusting the amount of electricity they can make as solar panels are. A 10 kilowatt wind turbine might cost $40,000 to have somebody come install it. And in the wintertime, you'll produce much more electricity than you use, and in the summertime, you'll cover your needs. So how does this turn out? If the utility company would actually pay you 10 cents a kilowatt hour for all the electricity that you put out on the grid, then you might have a 23-year payback, not considering repairs or cost of money. But they don't really like to do that. They would rather pay you their avoided costs. It's what they're legally required to do. which would be something like 2 cents a kilowatt hour. And so then if we look at the savings plus what they would pay you for the extra, it would look more like a 51-year payback. So when you're net metering, you want your facility's use to match the energy production, and then you'll get the best deal for your production. So what if you use solar panels? So again, the blue is the representative house that I showed you earlier, and the red is the amount of electricity you would be able to make with 2.2 kilowatts of photovoltaic arrays which are tracking the sun, as an example. That would cost about $20,000 to have somebody come install that for you. And so what would that look like? At 10 cents a kilowatt hour, you would get $440 in a year. At $20,000 for the installation cost, that would be about $45 for a simple payback. If your electricity costs more, then your payback time goes down. We have a 2.2 kilowatt system at Cornell College, and it's had its share of troubles. Some kid threw some rocks at 2 of the panels and shattered them, and they're still working, just not quite as efficiently as they were working before. A couple of years later, the tracker malfunctioned, so you can see the electricity production is going down. I think that if they were in totally good working order, we would be producing more than the 3,400 kilowatt hours in a year. But the Iowa Energy Center prediction is more like 5,000 kilowatt hours per year, so it's still lower, a little lower than the production. And there are just energy losses in the system. Okay, so what can we do about the cost of renewable energy not, the payback time not being that good, the cost of renewable energy being high? Yeah?
I'd like to know how long lasts the solar panel and the wind generator.
And the wind generator. That's a good question. People say solar panels can last for 50 years or longer. People have had installations going for that long and they're still running. And so maybe we don't even know what the lifetime is. And so people will definitely argue, I think it's a good argument, that you put in solar panels and you are investing in something that you could hand on to your children. Wind turbines have moving parts, and the moving parts are definitely have more wear and tear. And so you would have to ask your wind turbine manufacturer. I think that would be the right thing to do when you're asking them how much does it cost to install, how much does it cost to maintain, and what's the expected lifetime. Yeah. I don't sell these, so I don't have good answers for those. But I do think about how we could make these proliferate among ourselves and out among our neighbors. And people will do this when it makes economic sense to do. And if as a society we think that there's a good reason, as Jane Davidson argued earlier, and many people at this conference, I hope, have argued to you, that we should be producing carbon-free electricity, and we can. We have the technology to do it now, and we could provide some incentives to get people to put these systems on their homes. One kind of incentive is called a feed-in tariff, and the rationale is that we need carbon-free energy and that small distributed systems can contribute to providing carbon-free energy. Photovoltaic systems provide electricity when the grid needs it the most. And the way it would work is that the utilities would enter into a long-term fixed price agreement with a homeowner for the photovoltaic energy that they're putting out on the grid. And the rates would be favorable. The tariff, that is the amount that the utility would pay for the electricity, would be based on the production cost of the generation technology, and it would be fixed over a long enough time to allow recovery of the capital costs. Germany is doing this, and that's one reason that their solar industry has expanded significantly. One utility company in Wisconsin called We Energies is currently paying 22.5 kilowatt hours for photovoltaic and wind energy. And so that goes a long way. It cuts all of those payback times in half or more. And so that might be something that we should look for in Iowa, ask our representatives for in Iowa. What else can we do if we don't have feed-in tariffs? We don't have payments for carbon-free energy that makes the economics work out well. The other thing we can do is increase our efficiency and conserve our energy. And I'm sure you're all aware of lots of ways that we all can increase our energy efficiency. And so I encourage you all to go out and talk to your neighbors about how to do that. And instead of having our electricity usage in Iowa continue to increase at 4% a year, that we can see it level out and maybe even decrease. So thank you so much for your attention, and I'm happy to take questions. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
On your one of your earlier slides, you were showing how much energy it takes just for generating electricity. Do you have any idea how much we lose through our distribution system?
That's small, actually. So for transporting the electricity through the wires, it's on there actually, and I can find it. But I don't remember the exact number, but it's small. This is transmission and distribution losses here, and the number is 1.3 out of 42. So that's 3 or 4%. Yeah. And having energy generation on our homes does reduce that. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Is it possible to combine wind energy with the solar energy in a single home?
Yes, certainly. That's a great question. Is it possible to combine wind and solar in a single home? And it certainly is. There are inverters that manufacturers are making especially for that, but there are a variety of ways to do it. And so the one thing that I didn't say about wind is you need enough space. So if you live out in the country and that makes the most sense for your electricity needs to combine those, it's definitely possible. Yeah, great question. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.